Speaking, actually, you know what? Let's continue on this theme. So Tucker Carlson. I'll do the usual preamble here. I think Tucker Carlson is somebody that is I don't want to overly state it, but he's a complicated figure in American life. It is significant in the media landscape when, at least relative to cable news, you have somebody with a hard right nationalist agenda, is also somebody who is far more willing than almost any of his counterparts to acknowledge actual economic realities and social trends. That's just the truth. I have no problem with Mark Blythe going on there and describing Keynesian economics and inequality. I have no problem with that. I prefer Walter Bregman pushing back against Tucker Carlson's obvious, immense hypocrisy. And I think it is important to remind ourselves that this is the real engine of all this stuff. Donald Trump campaigned as a fake economic populist and on bigotry and xenophobia. He's governed as a Republican plutocrat and has gone 100% on white ethno-state politics. And that's still the bread and butter of Tucker Carlson, which is why a Swanson Air trust fund baby who spent his life being a caricature of himself on cable news has an obsessive vendetta with not only a good congresswoman, somebody, in fact, that if America had any intelligence, we would use to nation brand as an example of what a great society we could be. That somebody could literally be a refugee from Somalia and then could emerge as one of the most courageous and important emerging members of our Congress. And I do this after the Sabin story because, of course, don't forget that, again, with, of course, always the exception of Bernie Sanders and, you know, a couple of other progressives in the cohort, Nancy Pelosi has not had Ilhan Omar's back. Chuck Schumer and Steny Hoyer have had the opposite of her back. And I have no doubt that the Ham Sabins of the world would love to get rid of her because she's willing to speak honestly and with moral consistency about the Middle East, whether Israel or Saudi Arabia. So this pathetic racism of Tucker Carlson is aided and abetted by the Democratic Party elites that will not be 100% in Ilhan Omar's corner.
Omar isn't disappointed in America. She's enraged by it. Virtually every public statement she makes accuses Americans of bigotry and racism. This is an immoral country, she says. She has undisguised contempt for the United States and for its people. That should worry you, and not just because Omar is now a sitting member of Congress. Ilhan Omar is living proof that the way we practice immigration has become dangerous to this country. A system designed to strengthen America is instead undermining it. Some of the very people we try hardest to help have come to hate us passionately. Maybe that's our fault for asking too little of our immigrants. We aren't self-confident enough to make them assimilate so they never feel fully American. Or maybe the problem is deeper than that. Maybe we're importing people from places whose values are simply antithetical to ours. Who knows what the problem is? But there is a problem. And whatever the cause, this cannot continue. It's not sustainable. No country can import large numbers of people who hate it and expect to survive. The Romans were the last to try that with predictable results. So be grateful for Ilhan Omar, annoying as she is. She's a living fire alarm, a warning to the rest of us that we better change our immigration system immediately, or else.
Or else have good members of Congress. See, what's incredible there is what's conflated. And of course, the last part is pretty historically illiterate about Rome, but I'll set that aside. The last point is the real point, which is a ethnic, racial, and identity appeal about blocking immigration from certain countries. That's the actual point. The other points are, in fact, he's wrong about. You know, I would say, and this is where some people don't like me acknowledging that I think there are some incredible strengths of American synthesis and indeed the melting pot, because that footage of a observant Muslim woman elected to Congress, a refugee, a leader in this country, dancing to Shakira at a pride parade, you know what? I'm actually quite willing to acknowledge that you would not see that in a theocracy, of any sort. You wouldn't see it in an ethno-state. At our best, you get to see it here. So what he's talking about in terms of the quote-unquote assimilation is already here and already being enacted by Ilhan Omar and those who support her. That's it. And obviously, look, we can play the game. There's plenty of counter quotes where she talks about her love of this country. I think pretty demonstrably the fact that she's in fact chosen to, at the end of the day, let's face it, be on such a mainstream path as being a politician, a congressperson. This is not somebody who has chosen to put themselves in the margins of American life. Somebody who, when she's actually spells out her position on Israel, as an example, as a supporter of a two-state solution, somebody who has consistently said that she just wants the United States to, as an example, I don't know, not support decapitating babies in El Salvador, as when she questioned the ever odious, completely morally void Elliot Abrams. She, again, as always, is a voice not of our conscience and what we actually need to do in a way that not only is beneficial and necessary, it's actually pretty unprecedented in modern politics. And the profound tell is the last point when he makes it about specific countries. That's the appeal he's aiming for. That's the point of the white nationalist ethos of all of it. But then the other point, when he talks about things like assimilation, wrong. Incredible example of the synthesis that is actually possible in a genuinely civically bonded multi-identity democracy, which we should defend against people who would endlessly fragment us of any sort or another, and is in fact a big advantage that the United States has at its best.
Yeah, I mean, some people make a distinction between nationalism and patriotism, and nationalism being offensive and patriotism being defensive. And I'm not sure how useful that is to make. But I will say that when I see what Ilhan represents does make me feel patriotic, unironically. Like, that is an amazing thing. And I do think there is something American about it. Maybe not uniquely American, right? But who can really say things like that?
Who can really say things like that? Maybe everybody can get there, but it is here, and it is something that exists here in a positive way.
And it's a threat to Tucker Carlson.
And it's absolutely a threat to Tucker Carlson. What did you want to play here?
Oh, yeah. Just his little reference to Rome reminded me of another video. So we'll just shout out Sean. He had a response to Stefan Molyneux, who also likes to say, I don't know how well Tucker and Stefan get along. but Sean did a really good response to this canard commonly referenced
the Rome thing.
Rome was destroyed by multiculturalism sort of thing.